I'll never forget the first day I turned up at White Hart Lane. I was like a kid in the sweet shop, and just my luck, Jermaine Defoe and Ledley King walk over. I thought I'd won the lottery. It's phenomenal what it's done in terms of regenerating it. But the whole vision that Daniel had about NFL and concerts, every detail, acoustics, sound, lighting, it's the best experience. Privileged, humbled actually to have done the Olympics, did the Ryder Cup in Italy, the Rugby World Cup in France, worked with Real Madrid, Villa, and a number of other clubs.
Most companies are data rich and insight poor, and his ability to extract that data, I think that's been the big technology change with the advent of AI and the speed at which it can analyse and contextualise and bring the data points together.
Data is equally as important as understanding how people are interacting, and the best emotion is when your team wins. When Son moved to LAFC, his shirt sales surpassed Messi and LeBron James.
Crazy.
It's insane.
Yes, the loyalty stays with the club, but I do find that my spend with my club has decreased. I'm not going to as many games. I'm not buying as much merchandise. This season, usually I'll end up with a football top every season. But this season, I feel a bit embarrassed to be wearing the latest. Like, it does impact you. I'll always stay loyal, but the club's not seeing as much of my money now because I'm not seeing the performance, but also I'm not seeing any other value.
You're creating authentic content that relates to people, as opposed to, and I think there's that distrust in more polished and perfect content.
Welcome to Breaking the Blueprint. We're now at episode 9. I'm Iqbal Javed, and I'm joined by Vinay Palmer. We're delighted to have a special guest with us, which we'll come to very shortly. Vinay, tell me what's been going on since our last session. It feels like we've done quite a few of these already in a very short space of time.
It's been good, yeah. Well, we had the last one with Chris Morrissey from Zoom, which was a fantastic episode. Lots of good deep dives into tech, into vendors. That phrase of hijack CX came back up again. Really good, really enjoyed talking to Chris. What a great guy as well. So that was good fun. Since then, I've been out on the road a bit. I've been back at Zoom recording for their CX Summit.
That's right,
in EMA.
When is that?
22nd of October.
Okay.
So they're beaming that across EMA. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then I've been going around. I'm down to Wrexham for a couple of days, Llandudno, with my duties with Transport for Wales. And then I've been out seeing clients. I've just kicked off another project with a client as well, which is part of the travel. So I'm going to see some of their sites. So yeah, it's been a busy start to September, from quite a quiet August where I took some time out to reflect and think about goals and ideas and what we wanted to do next and those kind of things, to suddenly it's just gone 100 miles an hour.
It's really ramped up. I think I'm finding this as well at the moment, where you've got, you had the summer break, everybody's been out, and now suddenly everybody's come back and they want to get things done. And all these different projects are starting to come to life again. So it's definitely going to be a busy period now, kind of coming up to Christmas time. So,
let's hope so. And busy, and football's back.
Unfortunately for us.
Unfortunately for us.
Being United fans, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it.
Don't say that too loud. We don't want to lose subscribers on the podcast.
No,
but
I think, to be honest, most people sympathise. So if we may get some sympathetic subscribers.
Well, football's back and cricket's back. Cricket has been back as well. That's rescued some of my joy, being a cricket fan. But really excited for this episode. And it's got a link to football, because we're going to be talking and delving into the world of fan experience. And I was talking to the taxi driver on the way into the studio this morning. He's a Liverpool fan, unfortunately.
Of course. In Birmingham.
In Birmingham, from Aston. Make that make sense. So we were chatting about fan experience, and I was just talking to him about our guest and what our guest does and the clubs that he works with, and how football clubs are interesting because from a loyalty perspective, they're fan based, right? So you're not going to change your club because we're not going to change clubs just because we're having a bad time right now. So from a loyalty perspective and affinity, the relationship is there, but it's how are they working with that relationship? How are they creating an experience that fans will want to go back to? How does it continue to drive through their communities, through their families, further fanship and improving that on-site experience? So it was just an interesting conversation. And if you've seen any of the Birmingham City documentary, when Tom Brady's talking about it, there's real, you can see the kind of idea, the big thinking about this is experience, this is not just about coming to a game. So without doing the whole podcast between you and I, let's introduce our guest. I'm really, really delighted to bring to the show Sid Desai, who runs BC4. And Sid and I met through a mutual friend.
That's right. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming in.
No, thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, Sid, tell us a bit about you. You know, where did it start, and your journey to BC4, which is a really interesting organisation, and some of the work you're doing is fantastic. Just tell us a bit more about yourself.
Do I start right at the beginning?
Yeah, go. Where did you study? What was school?
Yeah, so I did a maths and computer science degree at King's College London, and then decided traditionally, do I go into finance, do I go into IT, and decided down the IT route. Started in hospitality industry, supporting hospitality systems, and then really got into sport and football through implementation of retail systems right back in sort of 2004, early 2000s, working with the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, Arsenal, Man City, and being a Spurs fan, you know, that was kind of a moment I'll never forget. The first day I turned up at White Hart Lane, I was like a kid in the sweet shop, and you know, just my luck, Jermaine Defoe and Ledley King walk over, and I was like, you know, I thought I'd won the lottery. So yeah, started then, and then worked for Oracle for a number of years, various different roles, IT director. But I was then asked to go to Spurs as a consultant to help them in terms of the new stadium development project, which was just, I mean, the best experience to not just from being a passionate Spurs fan, but actually to be involved in the stadium from the ground up when there was literally nothing there. And learnt so much about kind of the inner workings of the club, not just what you see on the outside as a fan. People say don't get too close to something you love. That phrase is slightly true, but I wouldn't have changed the experience for the world.
Just on the Spurs, I went to hospitality late last season, so I've kind of been through the Spurs experience. And when I compare that against my club, Manchester United, worlds apart in terms of the experience from the second I arrive as a fan at the stadium, the way I can get to my seat, like it's just that whole process was seamless with the way that, you know, Spurs had it all organised. So
yeah, and there was a lot of thought that went into that. Every minute detail was thought about. Obviously, it was about also how do you maximise the revenue from that major investment, and it's obviously, for the community, it's phenomenal what it's done in terms of regenerating it. But the whole vision that Daniel had about NFL and, you know, concerts and every detail, acoustics, sound, you know, lighting, it's the best experience that they could offer, close to the pitch. So when you're watching the games, you feel sort of immersed in it. I mean, and the advantage was that a lot of the stadiums that I've worked with subsequently, the likes of Real Madrid, I mean, amazing venues, but the foundations are the foundations, and therefore to try and change the structure of something like that is very difficult.
And your point about the detail is really important, and we'll dive into some more of that in a second. I just wanted to, and as a complete contrast, I've just this morning trying to buy tickets to the India-England one-day international at Edgbaston. So I've got a priority membership, got a lovely alert. You can jump on, buy tickets this morning. You get a 15-minute window while you're on this website. And I selected tickets. And for some reason, I don't know what had happened, I'd selected 6 and I thought, I'll change my mind and sit somewhere else. But it kept those tickets in my basket. And you can only buy 10. But I was trying to buy another 6 and it wouldn't let me do it. And I can see the timer ticking at the bottom, but there's nothing obvious telling me that I've already got 6 tickets in my basket other than the price at the bottom. And when you're in that 15 minutes of stress, you're not dividing that and going, hang on, that doesn't make sense. So I've managed to get them, thankfully.
Did you get more than 10 or?
I managed to get 6. That was good. Yeah. So I got 6. So
I'd love to have one, by the way. But
we'll do a deal. We'll do a deal at the end. So it just complete experience. But just your journey then. So you were football stadium Spurs fan, talking about all this. But in terms of the business BC4, where did that come from? Was that?
So it kind of, we start as in, we've had a major rebrand recently. And so the company was previously called KPSD. It's now BC4. And we really target 2 specific verticals, or 3. BC for sports, BC for events, and BC for retail. And saw an opportunity within the market that actually a lot of the products that people are using in this space are legacy kind of systems, archaic infrastructure, security risks, very siloed best of breed approach where you try and integrate multiple systems together, don't have a homogenized data set. And coming from an ERP technology background, I saw the potential in Microsoft Business Central. It's an ERP system, but it's an ERP system that touches all the endpoints. And we have the specialty in sports, which then made it, and retail, which makes us kind of a good partner, a good fit to understand how the business works, to maximize the investment in that technology set. And Microsoft, they invest, I've heard numbers, I don't know the exact number,
there'll be big numbers.
But it's billions. It is billions in their platform, and that's everything from infrastructure, security, product development, roadmap. So the product's not going to stand still. It will continually be evolving. And as we'll talk about later, there's a whole push on data, on AI, and how you can actually, optimize that system for maximum efficiency, and not only your own users and their satisfaction, but ultimately to deliver that to their end clients, whoever that may be. BC sort of, the rebrand was this year, but we've been going since around 2018. Really grew from 2018 onwards, more in the retail space, and then started in the sports space. And we're a unique partner. There's lots of Business Central partners. And that's one of the advantages of having a platform such as that, where, it's often, it's known in the industry that sometimes you may have a proprietary system and you fall out with that person, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with a system that nobody can actually maintain. So with the community that we're in, yes, we're a partner. We obviously want to retain all of our clients and acquire new ones. But you're not limited by, the platform is going to be there forever. And therefore our customers have freedom of choice. And that means that investment is protected. So we specialize retail, we specialize in sports, and we've done some really large events. Privileged, humbled actually to have done the Olympics, did the Ryder Cup in Italy, did the Rugby World Cup in France, worked with Real Madrid, Villa, and a number of other clubs. And obviously then we have the retail side of the business. But I know this is about sport, so I'll keep focused on that.
I think you were going to say, like your journey has been data-centric in as much as you've been involved with data and systems for a while. And before we dive into the kind of the exciting bit about talking about the specific partners you work with, just a bit about what's that journey and change been like? Because working with data is not new. Companies have wanted to do it. If you think about what Tesco's have been doing with Dunnhumby, I think that's the right partner.
That's right.
And their club card, and they were held up as a real stalwart of collecting customer data, using customer data, etc. And their recent results would lead you to draw the conclusion that that's been really fruitful for them in driving revenue. But over the sort of the decade, what's that change been like, both from attitudinally, but also what technologies enable differently now?
So I think fundamentally the technology has to support the experience, and it's about, and you talked about it earlier, that it's not now just going to watch a football match. It's about trying to make a day of it, and Spurs is a great example of it, because you've got go-kart tracks, you can do abseiling, you can, you've got things for the whole family to do before you go to a game. And technology has to obviously support all of those different initiatives. So I think the evolution of obviously the stadium part is one part, but it's about enrichment of that experience. So so evolution of the stadiums, it's not just a venue now anymore. It's a day out.
It's a full-on experience, isn't it? I think what traditionally, historically, it was just the men that used to go and watch football, and I think there's been a real drive to get families together, to build kind of now when we go to sporting events, as you say it's there to make it interesting for everybody, kids, women as well.
But that data part is actually now, historically, it's been silos of data. And you don't really have a true view of how people are interacting with you as an organisation. And that's because over time, people have gone with from a personal security, as in if I'm a CIO or a CFO, I'll go with something that someone else has done before and try and not break that mold of disruption. And therefore those systems are very good at what they do individually.
Disparate, aren't they?
But they're disparate. And therefore, when you don't have that joined up view of how people are engaging with you, how do you make their experience better? And that's where things are definitely changing.
Yeah, and I suppose capturing data at different points as well, because I guess, the evolution is a bit, companies always sat on data, and, there's this phrase, isn't there, that most companies are data rich and insight poor. And it's the ability to extract that data, I think that's been the big technology change, with the advent of AI and the speed at which it can analyze and contextualize and bring data points together. And there's a couple of examples. So just on your point about the shift in people that go to sporting events, you would normally collect your data from, I've bought the match ticket, I'm coming to the match, that's me, that's what I'm doing. But if you think about movements like Fans for Diversity with the FA and people that are bringing different people to the ground, they might be purchasing their tickets through different avenues and have different journeys to get to the match. They go to different things. So how do you design in those different data points to learn about that? And the second thing, and kind of an early story that I shared with Iqbal, which kind of was part of the reason we did this podcast, was I shared this example of my friend that was at a supermarket, and she'd been a loyal customer for years, for 5 years solid, spent 250 quid a week on her shopping religiously, used the home shopping as her way to manage her life, because her and her husband had busy jobs and she's got a couple of young kids. She even bought the premium pass by direct debit that would give her the slots to the premium delivery, and everything worked great until it didn't. And one day they screwed up the delivery, and I won't go into all of the stories about what happened. But the upshot was she didn't get an apology, it wasn't handled properly, and then she just moved her business to a rival. But that business that she moved from had the contact center, which had the data point that she'd called and made a complaint. They had a data point that said a direct debit has been cancelled. They had a data point that says, because she had their loyalty scheme, that this person has a shopping habit and now it's fallen off a cliff. But they all sat in different teams.
Absolutely.
And none of it was joined together. And you think, how often does that happen in companies? And how often do those data points just sit in a singular report, in a board pack over here that says revenue's doing this, but over here there's something else happening? And I suppose the exciting thing for me, and the thing I'm really interested in, is how do companies join those data points together?
Absolutely. And I think, it's interesting that you talk about that, because one of the angles that we looked at, and a lot of clubs are looking at, is also the social sentiment side of things. So when you're having a bad experience and you tweet it, or whatever it's called now, X, or you Insta post it, or Facebook,
whichever one,
but there is a sentiment there. Oh, I've had the worst experience today, and so and so didn't serve me, and I had to wait in long queues, or whatever it might be. That data is equally as important as understanding how people are interacting, and that then is, you've got millions and millions and billions of posts, and how do you churn through that? You need data farms that are actually got algorithms that are sitting there and wrapping through this to then be able to then service that up to the relevant teams, so that within minutes, hours, that someone's had a bad experience. Now that someone could be, your friend that had that pass, £250, whatever it was, and you don't want to lose their business. So it's harnessing and harvesting that data, presenting it back, but in a joined up view that it's real time and somebody can then take corrective action on it.
And I think that the joined up issue still exists big time. Like,
of course,
pretty much every organisation I come across, they've got the same issue, loads of disparate solutions. Just joining those things together is a huge win. That's the first step. And I think lots of organisations are already on that journey, whether it's retail or pretty much any industry this applies to, right? But I think what the vision for this is, as you say, it's not just serving it to people, but how can we get AI to make certain decisions?
Absolutely.
By using that data.
And there's automation coming in, and lots of business process, and there's companies that are doing very well in just focusing on just automating a standard process within your business.
Yes, that's right.
But now it's, how do you take that to the next level? And that's why when I talk about Business Central, I'm very passionate about it, because it is a ecosystem of, it is one system. And I think that helps with the journey.
And your automation point's really interesting as well. So another recent experience, because automation works beautifully when it works, but often those automations are also created in silos. So I booked my car in for an MOT. with a famous high street brand who will remain nameless. And it was really easy. Went online, booked my car in, put the number plate in, told me it was due, picked my slot, hit book, booked it, got a text message, everything. I thought, oh, this is really slick. It's really good. And then I cancelled it because I'd got rid of the car by the time the MOT was due. And then I cancelled it. I even got the confirmation text, sorry to see you go, you cancelled your MOT, really good. And the next day I got an email saying, we're looking forward to seeing you for your MOT, or a couple of days later. And you're like, well, where was the joined up bit between I've just cancelled, but there's obviously an automation built that says sequentially send out these emails, but there's not a data point that says actually suppress these customers if you get a data point here that says they've cancelled or something's changed. Don't send the email. There must be a broken chink in the chain.
It's a bad design. That's a bad design, right? But I think your point about automation is right. It's built based on a certain use case, and then you get a bunch of these automations that are built to serve that particular use case, and it doesn't look at it holistically. But it comes back to design. That's just bad design.
And so systemically, yes, join up system, but also from our side, it's also one-stop shop from design. So all the things that we're talking about, it's the design, the thought leadership, it's the design, it's the development, it's the testing, it's the implementation, so that we can give a complete service. Now, we're not precious about how much or how little we do, but we're there to support our clients if need be.
I think it's your industry experience that's what's so valuable here, because actually joining the dots up with these systems, lots of people can do, but knowing what's important to a football club, for example, that's the valuable piece where you can bring those.
And we've seen it with recent implementations that we've done for clubs where they have not really been able to maximize or been able to drive the business in the direction that they want because of limitations that they've got in their legacy systems. So it's innovation, it's experience, it's technology, obviously, but ultimately it's about satisfaction, and satisfaction is quite a wide term. It's a broad term.
It is. Ultimately, the goal, as we always say, is you want them to come back, you want them to tell their friends, and you want them to spend more. That's the kind of the three things we want. And just on the point on data, like collecting data is one thing, and I look at it like if you look at wearable health tech now as well, we've all got Apple Watches, or we've got wearable tech that measures our heart rate, our number of steps, and all these kind of things. And so we collect this data, but how many people are actually joining those bits of data together to give them a fuller picture? And actually, sometimes even with the data, you don't know what you're looking for. So that experience of somebody saying, "Hey, by the way, your data is telling you this. This is quite important. Have you not looked at this?" Because you don't know what you don't know at the end of the day.
Absolutely,
And so what I kind of guess the segue to that is, so football then, and landing in football. I know you're a passionate Spurs fan, so it's a dream job. But how are football clubs using this experience data now, and to kind of improve this fan experience that we talk about?
So there's obviously two kind of streams to this, and we talk about loyalty. And when I look at football and loyalty, that you can deconstruct it in various different ways. So there's loyalty as a fan to the club, typically generational, ancestral, father to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, whatever it may be. And that's where you talk about not changing the team that you support, which is understandable. So there's that loyalty when you look at it from that angle. But then there's also loyalty around retention and acquisition. And that's where the club's loyalty is rewarded back to you. And it's that data, and retention and acquisition is a big thing in football, because retaining your fans, if you're, generational, it's not going to be a problem. You're going to support that team forever. But acquiring new fans, and if you think about the concept of acquiring new fans, how do you do that? Now,
performance, I guess, is definitely one, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So, and in a global market as well. So, so the ancestral thing of I live in the area, I support the club, versus I live over in Thailand, or I live in Australia or the US, and I'm starting to get into football. How am I picking my team? How am I going to choose who I follow?
Exactly, and that's why we joke about this. But kids born in the 1970s, 80s, a lot of them support Liverpool, Man United. No disrespect to you guys. But, so it's like who's performing, and it goes through cycles, there's Liverpool, Man United, and there's Chelsea, there's Man City, probably Liverpool now again. It's cyclical in that respect, but who's performing well? Because we ultimately watch football or sport for emotion, and the best emotion is when your team wins. So that makes kind of sense. And then you've got the other side of it is also people following players. And I often think to myself, do clubs make these investments? So if I have two players that are absolutely identical in their capability, but one's, a poster person from a different territory or a different geographical location, do I pick them that might, drive revenue? Because and if you look at this Son Heung-min effect, there's 12 million South Korean fans that support Tottenham Hotspur.
It's funny, I was talking to somebody from Nike about sports and how it's evolved. And so I grew up in the Michael Jordan era, which was, you saw Nikes, you think Michael Jordan, and that's what you had. And then what's happened more recently is you've seen people like Roger Federer break away from major sports brands and create their own sporting brand. Virat Kohli is just about to do the same in cricket. And it got me thinking, and then the other example was when Lionel Messi moved from PSG into Miami, the number of fans on his social media that switched. So they're following the player. And what I was talking to Nike was about, it used to be you followed the brand and those athletes used to be, just happened to be associated with that brand. Now it seems we're following athletes. And it doesn't matter about what brand they are. You're now loyal to the athlete. So look at the amount of people that follow Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Roger Federer, Virat Kohli, all of these sporting greats. They have got their database of customers, people who will be influenced by their actions, their behaviors, and what they do. And I think that's a really interesting shift that's taking place.
Absolutely.
In sport. Sorry, we segued.
No, and just on that point, I think when Son moved to LAFC, his shirt sales surpassed Messi and LeBron James, and that's just like, it's
crazy.
It's insane.
Like, because the whole population in South Korea have just gone and bought that shirt.
But it's insane. So you can see why there's obviously, I'm speculating, but there's probably strategic investments made by clubs looking at that angle as well. But obviously they have to be able to perform. That's a given.
You can't just put someone in because they look like that. But I guess it's that almost that simple human thing about when you can see yourself in the picture, you associate yourself more with that picture. So when you can see somebody that looks like you in that, if you think back to the 70s and 80s when Viv Anderson broke through as the first black player to did he captain England or play for England? When you saw the 3 Degrees here at West Bromwich Albion, Cyril Regis and those guys breaking through, then that created a following because people saw them that way. I remember the first time we saw Madhur Jaffrey on BBC TV, the only Indian personality I'd ever seen. Suddenly we're on TV. So I guess it's that same thing when you can see yourself in the thing. So there's no doubt there must be some strategic conversation.
And I think the loyalty side of it, so we digress, but so there's loyalty about retention and acquisition. And that's a key metric. The data behind that is invaluable because that's about personalizing offers, understanding your fan base. How can you really hone in on what their interests are because you want to make their experience even better. And in order to do that, you need to understand them as an individual.
And I think going back to loyalty, yes, the loyalty stays with the club, but I do find that my spend with my club has decreased. i.e. I'm not going to as many games. I'm not buying as much merchandise. Like this season, usually I'll end up with a football top every season. But this season, I feel a bit embarrassed to be wearing the latest. Like it does impact you. I'll always stay loyal, but the club's not seeing as much of my money now because I'm not seeing the performance, but also I'm not seeing any other value. Like, for instance, if United lose, which is pretty much every weekend,
didn't say that.
So on the app, I'll get a clip sent to me of the last time we won in the 90s with Fergie. So just to keep me feeling very positive about it. It's a bit of a personalised experience, and I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but it's okay. If you're not going to perform well for me, what else have you got to offer me?
But that is one variable that unfortunately no club can control. And performance on the pitch is that one magic. That's the magic ingredient.
Exactly. So what else can be done?
So then it comes down to trying to not incentivize, but build a stronger connection with individuals, understanding your fans better, understanding the demographic of fans, the geography of your fan, and that all ties back in from sort of the direct revenue that you would contribute towards that club, but also all the sort of indirect partnerships and commercial sponsorships that sit behind some of these deals.
And what kind of data? Because there's clearly the transaction of I bought a ticket, so you've got data. But what sort of data are football clubs looking at collecting? What they wouldn't traditionally have collected before, I guess, and what are they now looking at collecting?
And I think with the movement of tech and things becoming far more accessible for a lot more people, so when we talk about these things, it shouldn't just be profiled for the big 6 clubs in the Premier League or in the big 5 leagues. That this is accessible to most clubs now, from all leagues. It's understanding how you're interacting with the club at all levels. So yes, you talk about a ticket, but actually, are you buying hospitality? Do you ever buy hospitality? Have you ever upgraded? Or are you always sitting in the same seat? Do you ever resell your ticket? Who are you reselling your ticket to? What merchandise have you bought? When was the last what's your average merchandise spend? Do you buy any food and beverage when you attend a game? What time do you enter the stadium? What time do you leave the stadium? So these are all different data points. What content are you looking at? Are you looking at it on your phone? Are you looking at it on your computer? What is it? What specific content is it? Is it a player that you're looking at? Is it actually looking at the history of the club or whatever it might be? So there's data all over these different points, and they're all kind of individual data points that you then want to aggregate into a single view, because then all of a sudden I can start understanding your thought processes and how I can then encourage you to, I come to a game, or upsell you something or whatever it may be.
And do they look at, because we were talking about obviously this kind of expansion of what experience means. So if you take some of the new stadiums that are being built, like we were talking about Birmingham City earlier, that they've built a stadium, but they're building a concourse and they're building stuff around it. And it's that dwell time of keeping people as close to the stadium as possible. So is there a world where they start to collect data points from these other places around and start to build that profile?
And yeah, that's a really interesting point. So a lot of this data, unfortunately, has to be, because of GDPR and personal security, has to be anonymized. But we have done this with other clubs. So you work with your payment providers, you work with your banks or whoever their providers may be, and you can understand the pattern of spend of people, how they get to the ground. So you can create heat maps of, a lot of people come in from the south, for example, and take, and a lot of people stop at Costa Coffee or wherever it may be. They can't say it's you taking this route in, but that helps from a marketing and a kind of where do I build my next pop-up store? Where do I, build my, if I want to hawk some umbrellas or scarves, or, where's the best strategic place to be?
Yeah.
So that's one side of it, kind of overlaying different data sources, anonymized data sources, but overlaying that to try and give you a better profile. And then within the ground or outside of the ground, yes, a lot of clubs, again, its financial position is understandable, but building hotels, building large concourses, building activity centres, doing this, that and the other, it's all, again, that data is all interfaced and sort of pulled together. And it's all about then how do I, if I can demonstrate that I can have 60,000 fans turning up and I can have a hotel, why don't I go and sell it to a Hilton branding or whatever it may be, so that I can then commercialize that, because I know before every match day I'm going to have that hotel is going to be fully sold out, fully occupied. So there's so many different points. It's just
And I suppose the other bit is...
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. No, it did. Because what I was thinking about was, specifically, I was thinking about an example that somebody had shared with me. Well, actually, it was an example it was something that I actually did. So when I was at National Express, I used to head up the innovation lab as part of one of my duties. And we had a company that came in and they used to track mobile devices anonymously. So the same way as your weather app knows where you are, it doesn't know who you are, but it knows where you are. And we were using it to track when people come in on a service, where do they go next? And we found this service that was going into the centre of London because it goes to Victoria Station. But then most of the people who were on that service were then coming back out of London. So we're like, well, why have we designed the service to go into London
to come back
when
out?
actually we can come out?
How did you work that out then? How did you know they were coming back out of London?
So that what it does, it tracks their mobile device from when they get on all the way into London, and then it follows that individual device out. And a lot of retail shopping malls use this. So I was doing some work with a shopping mall company years ago, and they were talking about how they follow footfall in a shopping mall, and they strategically place certain brands at certain sites. So you always have where Selfridges is, and the higher end stores is at one end, and then they have the lower end stores at the other end, and then they slice up their advertising and space accordingly and where people hang out, because that then moves people through the thing. And we had it with the airports episode.
That's right. Yeah. I'll tell you what, in Canary, I don't know if you've noticed, but in Canary Wharf, you've got access into HSBC's head office. Yeah. So that's where all the traders work, right? And there's a specific entrance through the Canary Wharf like underpass, and just before the entrance, you've got 3 or 4 luxury watch stores. Obviously, designed to be there to try and capture those that, obviously, potentially traders have got money to spend and that kind of thing. So I think it's that there's obviously a strategic perspective.
Completely.
Well.
And then you layer on the other bit that you said, which is actually, particularly stadiums like Tottenham and the newer stadiums, they're now multi-purpose. So Real Madrid's as well, the way the pitch comes out, they can do things. So you kind of go, well, actually, it's no longer just about the club aren't just looking at what's my football revenue. They're going, well, what happens when we have a concert? What happens when we have NFL? What happens when we have, the Olympics or whatever the thing might be that they hold? And that again is all data points. And I suppose there's also a correlate. I suppose there's a crossover of the, if it's your stadium, how many of our fans that follow football then also come to the stadium
NFL game, or the concerts,
exactly, things as well. And I guess that cross sell of people that might not necessarily be born NFL fans, but might be a Spurs fan and might think, well, actually, I'll go to the stadium because I like it there. It's a nice environment, and I'll catch an NFL game. Yeah, and suddenly you've acquired a potential
new fan base, or new demographic of fan.
But from your existing base, as opposed to acquiring.
But the luxury of that kind of venue and that experience is, it's limited in terms of the number of clubs that can do it. We're talking Birmingham City, obviously, with Tom Brady, brilliant, and the new stadium looks phenomenal. The designs of it.
That's the problem, isn't it? You've got these other clubs. I'm going to use United as an example. They've got a really old stadium. Old infrastructure, so they can't necessarily make huge changes to be able to provide, when I went with my family, it was a pre-season game just a few months ago, and we went to go and spend some money in the merch store. We couldn't find it. First of all, number one, and then secondly, we ran out of time because there was a huge crowd. And then we had to catch our train back. And actually they lost out again on custom because they just have one main store, and everybody's bottlenecked into it's just not been planned.
And we thought about that quite at Spurs. It's like when you half time. Normally, it's a choice of going to the toilet or getting a drink. You don't really get time to do both. So how was it? How do you make that experience possible? One, yes, you want them to buy food and beverage. And you also, obviously, they need to go to the toilet. So you want to make it frictionless. You want to make the speed of service as efficient as possible. And we looked at lots of different things like retinal scanning or, biometric, but actually then there's hygiene and other things. And actually, when you broke it right down, the quickest form of payment still
is cash.
It's tap. Tap is the quickest
form of payment. We see it on public transport. Whenever you put pay as you go in. It does that.
You sit there with a retinal scan and you see text showing, and yes, we could implement it. Our systems support it. They support RFID checkout and all of those different things. You can drop your basket in, it will calculate how much the goods are. You don't scan anything, you take it out and walk out. Now, they're all great concepts, but actually like retinal scanning or for self-pouring beer, okay, there's a benefit to a certain degree of the self-pouring part, but you still need to pay, and you need to make that as quick as possible. So what tech will work, unless it's take and go. But then take and go, when they tried it, just walk out concepts, they're just cameras, really. Yeah. And you're not going to RFID all the items and all of that. So
you'll have high percentage of loss and all that
exactly,
kind of
shrinkage, and there's so many other bits, and underage people drinking, and all of these other different things. So
it's funny. You showcase those ideas, and it's funny. I go back to public transport. There, having a ticket as your QR code, you think, oh, that's great. We can scan it, collect the data. But then getting on a bus and paying cash or tap is way faster than I've now got to scan. And if the thing doesn't scan my screen, I've now increased my dwell time at the bus stop. Exactly. And it takes longer to load the bus. And that's not built into the timetables and things. So then it has a knock-on effect. And it's one of those unintended consequences, again, when things are designed in silo. But just coming back to data. So great, we're collecting all this data. We know that brands want to use it. We've got this broader experience thing. What are the big challenges of measuring things like lifetime value with a fan? And how do clubs really better understand that kind of metric and act on it?
Yeah, so lifetime value, and it's like the holy grail, in my view, of like any sporting organisation. And traditionally, it's kind of been what's your average spend per year, and what's the average number of years, the total number of years that you're going to be affiliated or engaged with the club, and the two multiplied together, and that's the number. But actually, I don't feel that is the number, because there's so many other variables that come into this. And I think this is where AI and enrichment of data is going to take things to a totally new level, because circumstances change, for better or worse, health, financial,
family commitment,
exactly, jobs, location, where I'm living, all of those different things all play. So how do I truly value or get a value for what SID is going to be worth to me as a fan for the foreseeable? And I really don't think anyone's quite cracked that metric yet.
No. Hi, it's Vinay here from Breaking the Blueprint. Sorry to interrupt your viewing. I hope you've been enjoying the conversation so far. What a great discussion. But it was at this point in our conversation that we had a little technical mishap, and one of our cameras went offline. So for the remaining 20 minutes of this episode, you'll see Iqbal, you'll see Sid, you'll feel all three of us. I just won't be in shot. Maybe that's a good thing. Who knows? Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode. Thanks for watching. And I don't think most businesses have either, because I continue to have this conversation. So say you are two customers of my business. Sid, you come into my business every month and you spend 20 quid. So over a year, you're worth to me 12 times 20, right? Yeah. Iqbal, you come into my store once and you spent 50 quid, but you only come maybe once again in the year, maybe don't spend as much, but you're referring lots of your friends. So you've referred to me 7 or 8 friends of yours who have all come and spent 20, 30 quid with me, and then have gone on to have their own purchase journey. Who's more valuable, you or you? And actually, how do I? And I think it's interesting when you look at some of the tech first people like Uber, and their early acquisition strategy of, a refer code, refer a friend. So you can track who you're referring. I think Octopus Energy, again, refer a friend in. I did it recently. I've bought a certain brand of electric car where you can refer a friend in and then they get credit to their account. So you've got these kind of data points now. And the reason I'm bringing that up is part of, I think, is also why it's difficult to get to is I was interviewing a chap from L'Oreal at a conference that I was hosting, and we were talking about hyper-personalisation. And he made a really interesting point that I don't think is really highlighted enough. And he said that actually when you're designing these loyalty schemes, people think it's to do with how many points do you collect and how many rewards you give and stuff. And that seems to the focus of design, but actually it's collecting behavior and data. But if you don't deliberately design that in, you don't collect data at the right time and you don't collect the behavior points at the right time. So therefore you can't then get the framework. And I think partly, again, coming back to that bit in organizations, everyone wants to focus on their piece of the pie and designs their thing. And there's not always a collective view that says, actually, if we're going to put this in, we'll collect data here, 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 and here, because it's going to help the organization to understand the customer. Because marketing, yes, you might have an angle on, I want to know how many people click through, go through the funnel and buy. But actually, beyond that, what are the other data points that then help construct the story across the piece? And it was just, I think he articulated it probably better than I. And I think that is part of the problem, because that's why you can't get to lifetime value, because those data points aren't built in.
Oh, I'd agree, and I would say, say to my kids all the time, Apple, Google, our phone, they know more about us than we know about us. They know what time you wake up, what time you go to sleep, how you spend, where you travel to, how long it takes to travel, what you like, what you don't like. You know, they've got so much information on you, but obviously it's not available in the public domain, and the clubs can't leverage that kind of level of information. But imagine if you could overlay that into you know, a typical fan, how much more richness of information you would have.
You could achieve like great things, and I think us as consumers are yet to benefit from all these data points that everybody's collecting. Like, we recognize it, right? We're completely connected to all these different apps, devices, and everything else. The problem is, as you said, nobody's quite cracked the code yet to be able to figure out how this can benefit me, and I think AI clearly will play a massive role in making that happen. For me as a consumer, is having my own personal AI assistant. I know we spoke to Chris about this in the previous session about, you know, my bot potentially speaking to lots of other bots, and just figuring stuff out and just giving me exactly what I need, and being proactive as well in being able to.
And I think your point about the device is important. I should probably TM this and patent this idea, but it's on record now, so I came up with this idea first, which is, I do think there is, so we talk about AI, and lots of people talk about, I need to train my AI assistant to think like me, act like me, speak like me. But your device is already doing that.
Yes.
And so at the moment, the world is, I need to pick an AI agent and then train that. But what if the AI agent was just trained by your device, or your device was the AI agent? So actually there's a world, and I don't know when Apple Intelligence will ever be announced, but maybe that's what they're going to do, is all that proprietary data of when I wake up, when I go to sleep, what I eat, how many steps I do, where I am, my calendar, all of that is built in. It knows so much about me already. That becomes how my agent is then trained, or it becomes the agent. And I think that for me is just a world where then hyper-personalization, segmentation, all of that gets to a level. Of course, there are going to be debates about data privacy, you know, snooping, all of that kind of stuff, notwithstanding that, and protecting your own data, because you should be in control of what you share and what you don't share. But that's the world we're kind of heading down.
And I think clubs and organisations would love to have that level of information about every individual, you know. But, you know, if you think about, I like F1 or I like Wimbledon, I can never get tickets, you know, but I'm a Spurs fan, I'm a season ticket holder, or whatever it might be, you know. How can they incentivise me to start affiliating with cross brands? So all of a sudden, you know, upgrade yourself to the best premium box you can buy, make a 5-year commitment, and we'll ensure you get, you know, 2 VIP tickets to Monaco. Whatever that might be.
Because you know that offer's right for that demographic of person who's bought that box, because you've got the data. And sorry, just really quickly, and another example is, I was talking to John Bartlett from IHG, and he's an analyst, and he looks after all their data and all that kind of stuff. And he was talking about how you can now trade in your IHG. So what would normally happen is you collect IHG points and then you burn it on better hotel rooms. So maybe you're a business traveller, you collect loads of Holiday Inn Express or Holiday Inn, and then you go, I'm going with the family, I'm going to spend it on Intercontinental, and what would happen. But what they're now allowing people to do is to trade those points for experiences. So British Lions tickets or Wimbledon tickets, and so cross-selling, as you're saying, using the mechanism of this loyalty system and the currency. So you stick with that, but you're able to use it for other things, is an interesting. Sorry, I mean,
just on the point around the demographics, I think that's the traditional way of doing it. Is once you've figured out a trend amongst a certain type of person, I think now you can go beyond that. You don't. You can narrow it down to the individual because you've got enough data points to say, even if we live in the same area, similar families, this, that, and the other, I may have something very different in terms of my interest that they can pick up on to be able to provide a very personalised service for the individual.
And I think that ties back, that also, when you talk about lifetime value, if you bring that into the equation, that it's you know, I can't comprehend how you'd get to that final figure, because all of a sudden you're opening up so many different things for me that I could not normally do. But actually it's because of the club or whoever the organisation is that has enabled me to do that, facilitated it, and therefore
Yeah.
I'm going to be naturally more loyal because I might get something like that.
Yeah, because it becomes less broadcast and generic and more conversational and dialogue because I understand you better. So I'm tailoring what I'm saying to you in a way it's the same as when a friend goes, you should go and watch this movie, you'll love it. I say that to you because I know you, but I'm not going to recommend that other movie I went and see the other day because you won't like it. I loved it, but you won't like it. And I think it's getting us close to that level of how almost friend-like, like how well you know your friends. Could you get to that recommendation?
Yeah, and I think you can do that now more so because of this. You mentioned the social listening side of it, right? Where you've got there's one thing around how you behave and what your purchasing habits are, but actually getting to know somebody really is about tapping into their social feeds and what are they posting on X and Facebook. Well, not so much Facebook these days, but Instagram and things like that. And again, those are publicly available data points that you can feed into whatever you're trying to build for your customer. And again, I'm not seeing that come to fruition as well. The platforms are there to do it, right? You've got social listening platforms that are able to suck that data in, and actually it's really marketing that are using that data to build propositions and things. Yeah. But you're not seeing that kind of feedback to the services that are being offered to the same customers in the front end.
I'd agree. And because I just don't think people have quite figured out how to embrace it yet, how to harvest it and maximise use of it.
And some of it, look, is bandwidth time in an organisation. When you're a busy exec, you're meeting to meeting, putting out fires, there'll be people listening to this going, that's all very well, guys, but when the hell am I going to get time to put any of this in place? But hopefully, people are deploying AI to increase productivity and give time back, but you reinvest that time in doing this thinking, in that deliberate design, in making sure that if you are developing a loyalty system that you've thought about, actually, what are the data points we want to collect? What's the journey our customers go through? How do we then repurpose that to this over here? How does that join with this? How do we make sure that we're mining what customers are saying in the contact center and the ways they contact us and bringing that out and bringing it into this repository? Because it all comes back to better decision making and placing our bets in the right place. And I think you've got a mix of stuff that's happening right now. If you look at some of the influencers that are out there, they know this stuff, they do it really, really well. And lots of organizations are behind the curve because they're acting very corporate governance and risk versus startups that are renegade, disruptive, more likely to take a risk and break the rules and bend the rules and test it later. And I'm not saying that people should break the rules, but there's a testing of those boundaries. And I think those younger upstarts and newer companies are more prepared to push those boundaries than maybe some of the bigger traditional brands that still want to do things. I was talking to a social media brand company in Birmingham. I was chatting to their owner and he was talking about, they do a lot of stuff on TikTok. And he said, it's amazing, you go in and you talk about the power of TikTok and you go and talk to a marketing director who's done their MBA, who's been educated the traditional way. And they just come back to, right, we'll get camera crew in and it's all high production. It's like, you don't need any of that. You don't need it. Why are you investing in? You don't need that for what you're trying to create. Shoot it on an iPhone or give it to, you're creating authentic content that relates to people as opposed to, and I think there's that distrust in more polished and perfect content versus, digress there, but it just comes back to the point you're making about how those different organizations are adapting to the world in which we live in. Yeah. So, I mean, really great insights there. So 2 really quick questions. I say quick, presupposing they'll be quick. We talked a little about segmentation, personalization, but have you got any examples of any of the clubs that you're able to share? Yeah. Have you used personalization and segmentation well, or are you using it quite well in your opinion?
So, without giving specifics, so we're working with various different clubs. They all have different loyalty platform providers, and there's a natural link between ticketing entry, because everything you want to do from your phone. The vision is that you don't need to come to the stadium without anything else other than your phone. You pay from it, you enter the stadium from it, your loyalty is built into it. And there's a close link between loyalty and ticketing, which may or may not be surprising, because ultimately that's the unique reference, that's the identifier. Yeah. Your ticket identifier is and that fundamentally helps the linking of all that data. Because that's your key, your primary key. So in terms of what clubs are doing well between some of the ticketing side and the loyalty side. So in terms of acquisition of fan, you find this quite a lot. So when you're onboarding new prospects, not commercial partners or actually fans, and when you're signing up for a season ticket, they will do surveys around things that you like. Now, I don't know if you've experienced that with United, but they will ask you questions around what are your interests, because they want to start profiling all of a sudden. If you're into golf and we're going to have a golf day and you're going to get to meet a player and you're going to get a unique experience, then let's promote that to you and do a blind raffle, for example, or whatever it might be. So clubs are collecting that information already, but more, I wouldn't say discreetly,
more overtly, just asking the question.
They're quite open. I think what they also, I feel, the sense I get is that they want consistent engagement with me, regardless of what's going on. Even during the summer periods where there is no football, they still want to engage.
There's a beat rate,
yeah. There's definitely ways in which, as you say, whether it's a survey or could this be of interest, or maybe an event that's happening at Old Trafford or whatever. There's that consistent connection with me. I think they want to try and maintain.
And I think you're absolutely right. But in order to make sure that they're targeting you the right content, you may not be into golf, and there's no point promoting a golf day to you.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of make that link? And I think they're using that information and data that they're collecting openly, surveys, access on content on sites through your cookies.
Yeah.
Tracing what you're looking at, because obviously, again, unique identifier, they know who you are. Linking that together to then start trying to personalise and target more personalised offers. That's one extreme. The other side is what they can see from the data that they've already gathered, so that you are regularly attending games, you're coming to the same matches, you're going to the same in the same seat to all the matches, but you never experience hospitality. How can we try and encourage you to take that step up? Maybe it's something for you, maybe it's not. But are you into fine dining, or are you into burgers, or whatever it might be? And therefore try and give you a suitable offering, because all of a sudden you might think, okay, I'm going to trade my ticket in now and I'm going to get a hospitality for next season. So that sort of stuff is quite common, and it's being done behind the scenes, and you may see promotional content saying match day experience, premium experience.
And is it starting to influence the decisions clubs make on their F&B, like what they stock in terms of beers, what they stock in terms of 100%. Food, the kind of brands they bring in? Because you've started to see, I think, in some stadiums, the trend of bringing in ales as well as traditional lagers and other foods that people are starting to try from the traditional pie and chips kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is data that's been harvested from external sources. Obviously, there's a community spirit that has to be supported. So always try and support your local, your local brewers, your local cheesemakers, whatever that might be, and try and introduce them into those venues. One thing that you can never control is a commercial sponsorship. So Asahi, Man City.
That's it. It's a done deal.
It's Asahi now. And that will always take precedence. I think. Money talks. Same with, it extends to tech. It extends to lots of different things. Within that kind of the elite sports clubs. So, but in terms of decision making, yes, because they know, in terms of queues, they know where things are running out, where things are basically, you've got excessive amount of sausage rolls, for example. So they'll say, okay, we'll discount them 50% on in this stand in this particular area, because if you're on this side of the stadium, you've got 50% off because you've got loads of them. And nobody knows that on that side there's still 100%, but they're running out.
How are they making that decision so quickly?
So real-time data. Basically, Olympics, we were processing, 300,000-400,000 transactions a day. So you need the scale, you need the systems that can get that information and process it, and then obviously put it into the right decision-making kind of tools, if you like, behind the scenes. So price optimization, merchandise price optimization, stock, inventory maintenance, all of those different components of actually minimizing loss, maximizing efficiency, maximizing return, all comes from that data, all of it.
Yeah. So last question, and we'll
I don't even if I answered
No,
that.
it's fine. No, you did because we were talking about how they're using it, and you gave examples of, and I guess that continues to evolve. But that whole, because in CX, hyper personalization is talked about all the time. It's talked about as almost in the same way as omnichannel, like it's there in the future, but we're not there yet for all the reasons we've described. Most companies don't tend to personalize very well or segment very well. If they do segment, it's on very traditional means. Yeah. But the data sets we're collecting allows us to kind of really start to get to another layer of, beyond the superficial understanding of, from an economic, ABCDs or just where, sociographic, whatever those things might be. But it's getting you to a much more behavioral based understanding of what your customers are actually doing.
And I think that extends to even content now. And we use it from a marketing angle, and a CFO looks at our website, we serve slightly different content or different pages. I think that will start proliferating more through clubs and through fans.
I think we expect it. We expect there to be more relevance in what we're seeing at brands. I don't think we're really whether it's unconsciously or consciously, I think we're being more turned off by just generic content. Because if you think about our daily lives, we're fed algorithms on our social media that give us content to our needs. When you turn on Netflix, it's giving you a set of recommendations. I mean, even before all of that, Amazon was the king of it all, that would just say, people like you bought this. And you go, oh, I'll have some of that then. And that was the start of it, right? So that companies they're sitting on that gold mine. It's just about how do they execute that. Yeah. So my final question was going to be, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. And while you think about it, I'll ask Iqbal a question. But what lessons can the sports industry, what lessons can other industries take from what you've done in the sports industry? So people like retail, travel, how can they begin to think about some of the things you've talked about today, about what they do in their daily role? And I mean, we've obviously talked to organisations all the time about that. I mean, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with a travel company recently and worked with many retailers in the past. I think it just goes back to your original point around just way too many disparate systems, and actually that whole understanding of how your customers are behaving in store versus how they interact with you on the website. A lot of these organizations, they haven't really kind of been able to pull that information together, and that's why there's a lack of being able to provide a personalized capability. I think through the apps that they've produced makes a bit of a difference. But I think just going back to your point around where everybody is, it's a journey, right? You've got to, as long as you know you're kind of working towards designing the right solution, you'll get there. But kind of pick your wins as you go along, because nobody has the time to look at it as so holistically. You've got to pick your battles along the way. But, at the end of the day, it's a journey. You've got to kind of work towards that.
It is a journey, and I think the first question is getting really clear on what are the coordinates, what's the postcode you're trying to get to, which will then drive all the other decision making. Because I think that's often an underinvested step. Yeah. People talk about it. They have a mission statement. They have values. They have and it's loosely inferred in the things they talk about. But being more deliberate and precise in your thinking. Like, you might never get there, but you've got a better chance of getting as close to there as possible.
But I think what I've learned and what I'm seeing now, and which is why we are disruptive, and I'm proud to be disruptive in what we do, because everyone's been quite historically institutionalised by what prescribed in terms of what the systems offer them is what they kind of get. Yeah. The ones that are actually thought leading in this is, think of the end output first. What is it that you're trying to get out at the end? Yeah, and is that reporting or data or whatever it is? What's the final state look like? And then work backwards from that. What the input needs to be, because everyone starts from the input and then they get to the end state, and actually this doesn't mean anything to me. And then you've got lots of manipulation and lots of people interacting to try and scuttling around to try and get that. And that changing. I think people are understanding that.
And just on that point, I think usually in the past it's always been about what's the ROI. Like, you're asking me to spend this in this technology. That's the wrong question. Yeah. The ROI is a consequence of the outcome that you want to focus on. And you've said, like, if you define that really well, then okay, let's figure out how we get there. But actually, at the end of it, that's the benchmark. That's how we're gonna. That's how we're gonna decide whether this was a success or not. And I think that gets lost sometimes.
And I also see lots of clubs that we're working with. There's constant innovation, constant initiatives coming about. You know, talk about RFID. So Real Madrid's RFID. You take stock out the stock room, walk onto the shop floor. They know how much stock you've got. You sell it.
Yeah.
They know instantly. You know, there's no days of scanning things out the back stock room and putting them on. You're replenishing based on sales, kind of real time. And I take that for sort of granted now. You know, I take when people talk about omnichannel, and you know that, I mean, like, you know what, you're not doing that. You know? As in buy online, return in store. These are all common things. It's all retail centric kind of processes that have made their way into sport. But when you flip it the other way around, it is about also breaking those data silos, but because you don't know where things are going to go next and what innovation is going to come next. Don't be hampered by the technology stack and the foundations to allow you to open, you know, your landscape and your horizons to do whatever it may be within reason. So if I want to hook my data point directly into Uber because I'm leaving the ground, you know, or whatever it might be, then it should automatically get me a taxi and it should know where I'm going. All of these different things, but in order to do that, you need the framework and the foundations for it, and that's where the movement to the likes of us and, you know, what can only help. Brilliant.
And I love that about the outcome thing. There was somebody much wiser than I once says, you always start with the end in mind. And I think that's just a mantra that we need to have more of. But look, Sid, thank you so much. It's been brilliant. Really love the conversation. Lots of great nuggets there. So we look forward to the episode going out. We've got some other great episodes coming up. John Bartlett from IHG is going to be coming on to talk to us more about data and how they're using it in them. We've got a couple of CX leaders lined up to come on our podcast as well. Hopefully we'll get George and Luke on, who are going to be talking to us about the role of sound in customer experience. So they'll be coming on soon as well. So stay tuned. And if you've not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Every subscription helps this channel. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.